Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan for another Inside the Birds, and we've got a game just a couple of days away. The Eagles going down to Tampa, and thoughts with everybody in the North Florida, the Big Bend area, the what do they call it? The Gulf Coast area,
Yeah.
because hurricanes are no joke, and hopefully everybody will be safe and sound by the time that thing blows through. But there is a game. It will be in Tampa at Raymond James Stadium between the banged up Philadelphia Eagles and the banged up Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Adam. And honestly, that is a major storyline for this matchup right now is who is going. It's a race to see who can get who healthy in time for this game.
Yeah, the Bucks have, wow, they added I think like 9 players to their injury report this week. They have 16 players on it. They do expect most of them to play, but as we said on our last show, the Bucks have defensive injuries, the Eagles have offensive injuries. And on your point, they're going to impact the game and the matchups really. And we saw this last week. Boy, did it impact the matchups specifically for the Eagles at wide receiver. Somehow they were able to muster over 300 yards passing. Obviously, a couple big plays played into it. But the bottom line is injuries are going to be a factor in this game. How much depends on obviously who's available, who's not. But yeah, the Bucks all of a sudden added a lot of players on both sides of the football. But the real issues, and we'll get into that when we do our injury report, are up front and also in the secondary.
Absolutely, and we'll get into them right away. It's the news as we expected, not necessarily great for the Eagles from an injury update standpoint. As of their last practice on Thursday, and again they'll get out there today, and we'll see later today what the announcements are. But wide receiver AJ Brown did not practice. Wide receiver DeVonta Smith concussion did not practice. A little bit more encouraging, I would say slightly, that Lane Johnson was out on the field. On Thursday, didn't have his helmet. It is part of the protocol, as we talk about all the time. Doesn't mean you're out of the protocol when you're on the field or out there. It means that you're working through it, and that's where Lane is. So maybe later today, we'll see what happens. But as I don't know how you feel, I still, until I see a guy practice, I get really skeptical coming off a concussion that he's going to be able to play.
Yeah, now there are some cases, they're rare, but there are some cases when a player travels with the club and he gets cleared by a independent neurologist in like whatever city you're going to. In this case, it's Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's why at least it's a positive he's out there. You cannot be out there if you have light sensitivity issues. That's a big issue talking to players over the years where
Right.
you see the light, or anyone who's had a concussion, really. That's great that he's out there and he doesn't have that. He was seen stretching. He's a long shot, but it's just great that he's out there based on his concussion history. He's had a lot of them. He was seen throwing up on the sidelines. That's very worrisome. So I was just really encouraged that he was out there for the second straight day, this time doing a little bit more. He's not close to finishing the protocol, but he is progressing at least a little bit. I don't have the 6 steps in front of me, but that's good. Like that's really good. So hopefully he doesn't have a setback. And I'm pleasantly surprised that he's been out there. That's great.
It is. I agree that it's encouraging, and we'll see what kind of progress is made in the next 24 to 48 hours. As far as Landon Dickerson and Mekhi Becton, the left guard and the right guard, looks like they'll be good to go. Landon Dickerson was dealing with a wrist, and Mekhi, we saw him leave against the Saints with a finger injury, and he's taping it up, and it looks like he's going to be all right to play. Now, how well he plays is a question, because a finger for an offensive lineman is huge, but at least he's going to give it a go.
Right. So what it is his left ring finger, as he confirmed to the media, he has ligament damage in it. So it's going to be taped up. And obviously the key in practice this week, and you were getting that, is to see how effective he can be against live contact. And he'll get that in practice. Dickerson's injury is new. This was an ad on Wednesday coming out of the game with a wrist injury. He's expected to play. So the big ones, and right now it doesn't look good for DeVonta Smith and Brown. They haven't been seen at practice at all. So with AJ, it's just he can't play without practicing. He's got to show that he can run. And right now he's not doing that. So we'll see what happens today, but not looking good for Sunday. And never know, but he would have to progress significantly in DeVonta again. He is not. Yeah, in fact, Lane would be this would mean Lane's actually ahead of DeVonta in the protocol. We don't know exactly what spot Lane is in, but this is good. Again, this was this kind of made my day because I got very worried. Over the years, when I see former players, I always ask them how do they feel,
Hmm.
and that's the first thing because I just want to know how they left the game, and it saddens me sometimes when they talk about some of their memory issues. And
Yeah,
Tommy Kramer, the veteran, the former Vikings quarterback, announced he's dealing with dementia, and that's
hmm,
but the Brett Favre situation, it's just it's terrible, that this is a result of playing football.
it is. And, the light has really shined on that more recently with Tua having another concussion and going on IR and seeing what's going to become
Yep,
of him. I think we said this in that, you just don't want to see a guy like 10, 15, 20 years down the road looking like a vegetable of himself because of it. It's
yep.
it's it's terrible, but we'll see what happens there. I agree with you. And hopefully
Real
everybody
quick,
recovers.
yeah. Remember we met? Was it 2 years ago at the Super Bowl? We met Jim McMahon.
Yeah, I was just thinking. It's funny. I was thinking that as you were talking about Tommy Kramer, I was thinking
Yeah,
about Jim McMahon. Yeah,
and Jim, I know through cannabis is doing well. It helps him. We had a nice talk.
yeah,
It's tough. I mean, it's just tough, man. It's really tough. If you and I are pretty close to this game, so it's hard seeing former players struggle, man. It shakes you up when you see this. It's sad.
it is.
But yeah, we wish Lane the best. I mean, we'll see what happens, but he's got to do the right thing by him. Just by him and his family. He's got to be truthful with everyone, and telling people how he feels and stuff. So
Hmm.
he's in the protocol. We'll see what happens.
So back to wide receiver. Here's what the situation. Here's what the picture will look like for the Eagles if
Yep.
AJ Brown, DeVonta Smith cannot play. Your receiving group will be led by Jahan Dotson. You will have Johnny Wilson out there, and with Britton Covey hurt also, and we'll get into that. He's going to be out for about six. I think he said 6 weeks with the broken bone in the shoulder. That's what Andrew DeCecco reported.
Fractured scapula. Yeah,
Fractured
that's
scapula. Yeah,
a bad
yeah.
one. Yeah, shoulder blade. Yeah.
So you've got Dotson, Wilson, a likely elevation for Paris Campbell, and where do they go?
All right. So here's the first thing. It's funny how you set that up because that's what I was going to say. Here's where I think they're going to go.
Uh-huh.
John Ross is the only one with major experience in the scheme. What I say that he was with them in training camp. Okay, wasn't in a game. Well, he played preseason. Now he just got back to practice. They got to see how he's doing. Danny Gray's only been here for a couple weeks. Same with Kyle Phillips. Kyle Phillips is really a slot receiver, and he has played in the NFL games. He's played with Tennessee. Danny Gray has very little playing experience with the Niners. To me, John Ross makes sense. Now, again, they have to get through practice and see how he goes. So right now, which is it's kind of a lock. It's Wilson, Dotson, and Paris Campbell. They have to have a fourth.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, someone else has got to come off the practice squad. Now, again, it depends how John Ross looks. To me, he's the odds-on favorite. By the way, they have till Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern to add players off of their practice squad, whether it's signing off of or elevations.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other thing they're going to do, as they did last week, they played heavy 12 personnel. They could do some 13, which they did a little bit with Jack Stoll.
For sure. For
And
sure.
the point you brought up 3 months ago or 2 months ago, if they did, this is before they signed or traded for Dotson, have Calcaterra be that slot tight end. Quite frankly, that's what he needs to do because he doesn't block as well as Jack Stoll. I think that's an understatement.
Yeah, I think that we're no matter what, we're going to see a decent amount of 12 personnel.
Yep.
Now Dotson wears 83, right? So I was confused. I thought maybe the person who gave uh the Bengals guy who were just John Ross. I thought the
Oh, yeah.
person who gave him might have stitched his uniform in the mirror because he's wearing 38, and that is not a wide receiver.
Who is? Is he really?
Yeah, I would be worried
Oh,
if because like if I'm a
I hate that.
quarterback like Jalen Hurts and I'm dropping back, I'm not throwing it to a guy wearing number 38. That's usually the safe. That's the last thing I want to do is throw it to the wrong guy. But I don't know
Yeah.
what the idea was for him to wear 38. But if he's up and elevated in the game, just look for number 38.
Yeah, not a lock that'll be elevated, but he would make the most sense. It's so funny that you saying that reminds me of when you go to training camp, they'll have a guy who'll be 38, but there's an offensive 38 and a defensive 38.
Yes.
I hate that. I don't know why teams they're not running out of numbers. There
Yeah.
are enough numbers. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, you're right. And the worst
38.
part, in college, you can do it. It doesn't have to be in practice. Penn State has gotten away with having a defensive certain number and an offensive certain number. I believe the rules in college permit you to do that. So
I hate
that's
this.
always been tough too. Yeah.
Man.
So obviously, look,
Yeah,
the point is
yeah.
this is dire. This is about it. I
Yeah.
remember, you remember the Doug Peterson era when they were really banged up a wide receiver and they were like on Josh Perkins and guys
Yep.
like that. This is and who's the guy from Houston that used to be the quarterback? Greg Ward was their leading receiver that year. This is about as dire as it gets. So this is, and we'll talk about it more with Greg Cosell when we do the pregame show on Sunday morning. But
Good.
to me, this is the game where Kellen Moore and Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni and all the offensive brain trust just out. They got to be in their bag. They really have. They can't just line it up and expect to win their one-on-ones. They need to get the ball to Saquon Barkley, and they need to, in the passing game, figure something out. It's not going to be easy. It might be very, very difficult, but this is why you're paid big bucks. This is why you're known as being a offensive mastermind if you're Kellen Moore. And for Jalen Hurts, you absolutely must protect the football in this game.
Yeah, they've got a challenge. The coaches were in the bag last week. They did a fine job. They brought all sorts of stuff. They got in the lab. They did a great job.
Yep.
Both coordinators were phenomenal. It obviously Goddard's could be a major focus. He should be their number one targeted player without question. He has to be. I mean, Dotson is. Look again. The Commanders didn't want him. They weren't going to. What I'm told is they never would have cut him, but they were motivated to trade him. They didn't want him. This new staff, front office, and coach staff didn't like him at all in terms of his performance in practice. They want him off the field, off their roster. So they found a team in their division. But Jahan's talented. They need him. He needs to really bring it. They got to. Aaron Moorhead, the receivers coach, has got to get this kid to show up and perform. See, that's the thing. After Goddard, they need somebody to make plays. Again, we're assuming that for now, Brown and DeVonta Smith are out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is the one bone I've had to pick with Kellen Moore is we're the backs in the passing game. I get it. Good. Hurts checked the ball down a little bit to Barkley last week. That's fine. But I'm talking about design pass plays to running backs, which we barely saw last year with what's the kid that's now with Detroit?
DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, DeAndre Swift, right. Who was phenomenal with Detroit catching the football. DeAndre Swift didn't get the ball in the pass game except in training camp when we thought it was going to happen. It didn't. Shipley could catch. You and I have talked about this, number 28. Gainwell, we know it can do it. There's certain things you can do. We saw this many years ago with Miles Sanders. When there were a couple of years, Miles really caught the ball well here.
I feel like we haven't seen the running back really involved as a downfield threat, as a vertical threat since Miles Sanders year 2 when he had those great games against Detroit and Minnesota. Yeah.
What was that play? I was just thinking of it.
The H seam route.
H seam. Yeah, Cosell's play. That was an awesome throw and an awesome catch.
Yeah, there were a couple of them. He had 2 versus Detroit and then 2 or 3 more versus Minnesota. It was like back-to-back weeks where they just found something out there. All right. Yeah. So as for the only other guy you wonder about is Slay. He said he's fine. You know, his knee. He said he told reporters he hyperextended it when he got blocked by Penning out of bounds and that he'll be okay. It's sort of like the Becton thing to me. It's like, okay, you're playing, but you're up against Mike Evans and your knee isn't 100%. That's not exactly great. I mean, it's great you're toughing it out and doing what you can do because if he couldn't play in this game, I mean, you would just throw everything out the window. But you do wonder how effective he'll be against those good Bucs receivers.
Yeah, and a knee hyperextension is like it's going to be there's going to be some stiffness. That worries me a little bit. For this matchup, that's definitely a concern. And the early indications are if Lane is out, it'll be Fred Johnson again and Becton. Though Steen graded out, he was phenomenal at right guard filling for Becton after he left in the second quarter. But they're going to stay. And by the way, Becton has not played badly. Like that, it's one you can make the case for the change now. If Becton played poorly so far this season, that hasn't happened.
Right.
And that's why, barring a surprise, that they'll keep it the same. One thing I will be interested to see is if they have Darian Kennard, who's been inactive. I wonder if they'll have him active this week.
I would think if there's one guy, if someone's down, then Kennard would be the one up, especially if it's Lane, because you want someone with tackle experience. Yeah.
Correct.
All right, go to the Bucs injuries. Like you mentioned, 16 players on the report, most of them expected to play, but the ones who are your biggest question marks are really important to the team. Offensively, their right tackle. I always pronounce this wrong. I always say Luke Gedecke, but I think it's Gedecke, right?
It's Gedecke, but okay, you just said it. I heard Jason Lake call him how did you say it again?
I say Gedecke. But
Gedeke.
I
I could
think
have
I heard
sworn.
somebody else say
Yeah,
Gadecki, so now I'm
right.
not sure.
Well, every announcers call him Gedeke.
Okay.
So, but I
Gadecki.
heard Jason Light say it like you did.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, okay, because this is the confusing thing. It's like with Bijan Robinson, the West Dorm, the voice of the Falcons calls him Bijan,
John, yeah.
but they don't call him that on TV. I'm like, guys, could you get the pronunciation guy, please?
It would
I
be
mean,
nice, right? It would be nice. Now, if Jason Light, the team's GM, is in my corner, then I feel
yeah,
a
exactly.
little
Yeah,
better. I'm not
right,
on an
right,
island
right. He
butchering the
drafted him.
name.
He should know. But hey, we'll go
Exactly.
through Gadecki. Actually, this one's important for fantasy. I do want to mention Bucky Irving,
Yeah.
who, and we're gonna talk more about the rotation when in the next segment. But Bucky Irving told their reporters he's good to go with a hamstring, but this is a new injury for him. He was added this week, so
Okay. Well, yeah,
um,
that is significant because as we'll talk about, he's supposed to be getting more
yep,
involved in the offense.
they need to. Yeah, they
Yeah,
need to.
they
But
absolutely need to.
the big ones on defense. Let's get to defense. So Vita Vea with his MCL sprain, he's getting closer. He started working last Friday, which is a light practice for a Sunday game. He's worked limited so far this week. He's getting closer. They'll know more after Friday's practice. Kalijah Cancely, not only has he not played this season, my buddy Tom Krasnicki from WDA in Tampa told me we were doing an interview on Wednesday because I know these injuries pretty well. So I said, "Oh, it looks like Cancey's going to be out again." He goes, guess what? It's his other calf.
Oh,
What happened is last year he missed significant. Let's say last year was a right calf. This year it's a left calf. I mean,
right.
gee,
He missed the Eagles game last year at this
yeah,
time with the calf. So
the
this is
first
his
one,
second straight year, right? That he misses the first Eagles game with a calf injury. He
bad
played
man.
well against them in that playoff. Well, everybody
He's
on the Bucs
explosive.
played well again, but he played well.
Ball and explosive. So that's a problem for them. And then Antoine Winfield has not practiced since he got hurt 3 weeks ago with a sprained foot.
Mm.
And what Tampa is doing there is interesting. So there a couple of things that they do are interesting, which we'll just throw this out now because they some teams do this, some teams don't. They'll use Christian Isian, the safety from Rutgers, who was their nickel corner last year, their nickel DB, I shouldn't say corner. Big fans would yell at me. It's their nickel defensive back. And then this year, they're doing the same thing. West Philly's own Tyke Smith, who went to
Georgia.
Imhotep, who I
Mhm.
met at the Combine, maybe Super Bowl. I can't remember. Tyke Smith is their nickel this year. So that's interesting. Some teams like to use a corner as a nickel, not the Bucs and Todd Bowles.
Where did they draft Tyke? What round?
Third round from Georgia.
That might have been a good pick for them. We'll see. I liked him at the Senior Bowl, and I kept thinking when they drafted him, I'm like, man, they got it right on Yaya Diaby 2 years ago in the fourth round, and they could really hit on this guy in the third round. That's a feather in their cap. He's a name to watch. He's a good player, heady player out of Georgia, Tyke Smith, and yeah, like you mentioned from Philly. But still, not having Antoine Winfield is a major part of their
Huge.
defense, and
Huge.
that helps for the Eagles at least. Yeah, those are the major injuries for the Bucs. It's again like most of those guys you mentioned are expected to play, but the ones who aren't or are big question marks are really significant to what they do. Let's move on and we'll talk about some notes leading up to this game here. Before we go on, everybody right now is talking about the Phillies in the playoffs and Red October. You got Birds games, You know what's all right around the corner that people forget about? It's the Flyer season, and preseason hockey is going to be underway really soon. There are a bunch of preseason Flyers games that are going to be taking place at the Wells Fargo Center, and also some great shows. You got Sebastian Maniscalco coming up. You got Jelly Roll, everybody's favorite face tatted singer, is coming also to sing his songs. Jelly Roll. Do you like Jelly Roll? Are you a Jelly Roll guy?
I know who he is. I mean, I've seen the video of him, and yeah, it's interesting.
You're like me. I don't think I may have heard a song and not realize it's him, but I
Oh, yeah.
know who he is from his appearances.
Good.
But anyway, you can get great tickets to see any of the Flyers, the shows that I'm talking about, of course, on Game Time. And they've got this feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. It filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They call that their super deal, and it really is a super deal. And there are other tiers of deals as well where Game Time finds you the best value for the section of the arena. It is an easy, user-friendly experience using the Game Time app. And not only is it user friendly, but you are covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. That is the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. I've always talked about the panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and of course the all-in pricing, which shows you the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. I know that's very important for everyone. All right, so take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code BIRDS, BIRDS, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, Adam. Also, I wanted to just say Quentin Michael did a great job doing Ask an Eagle for our Patreon members the other night. It was our monthly Ask an Eagle. Mike Quick was awesome in August, and Quentin Michael, wow, that's good. Quentin Michael, Mike Quick, kind of weird how we had that. Q was blown away. He texted me after like, whoa, those were amazing questions. So awesome job by our Patreon members and a great job by Q. And this is the type of content where you get to ask. We don't ask the questions. Our Patreon members ask the questions and they get answers. They get to talk directly to former Eagles like Mike Quick and Quentin Michael, and we'll have John DiFilippo coming up soon for that next month. And we do the same thing every week with Greg Cosell and our Ask Greg Cosell, and our Patreon members have really responded well. This is the type of content you can't get anywhere else. That's why you really should sign up at patreon.com/InsideTheBirds, because we're feeding our Patreon members as much as we can.
And by the way, I was saying in the Wednesday night live stream that you and I did, I said, you guys should just take over. They're so sharp that they basically, they will ask us questions, but with Greg or Q or us, like they know where to go with the questions. And it's kind of funny, like with Greg, I didn't really have to say anything. I didn't have to ask questions because Greg, they asked anything you and I felt we needed asked, they asked. We didn't have to ask.
Yeah, we're like spectators. Just watch.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Listen. Did you like my impromptu all 22 breakdown during our
Ask that was phenomenal. I didn't know. So yes, we do on for the public, we put we do the Inside the Tape show, right? Was it Thursday mornings it debuts?
Yes, that comes out Thursday. That came out yesterday morning.
Right. But we do the we do also when we do the live stream. I didn't know you were going to do that. You were going to pull.
I didn't either.
That was phenomenal. I was like, whoa, what is this?
Well, somebody had asked about, just to let everybody know, if somebody asked, our Ask ITB live stream on my Patreon, they had asked about that first blitz that the Saints threw at the Eagles with, it was like a 6-man, well, it looked like a 6-man rush. It turned into a 5, but they had the nickel hiding behind the linebacker and the edge and an overload on the right side. And I think they were asking why did the offensive line not pick that up? And it really wasn't when they were sending more rushers than guys in the block. It was really on Gainwell, who did not come around the edge because he probably didn't even see the nickel Taylor there, right? He kind of was hiding. And so Gainwell looked to the middle to pick up a blitz instead of around the edge. And that's how the nickel came around the edge and sacked. Jalen had no shot. And as we froze the frame, we could see that he also slipped. Remember on that back, as he was planting his back leg, it slid out from under him. So he had no opportunity to get the ball out at that time.
Right. Now, it will be pointed out pre-snap, like the quarterback will see it, but on the creep blitz, the DB hid behind the edge rusher.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't even tell. In fact, there were 3 guys lined up like really tight next to each other for the Saints?
Yes.
At end?
Yep.
It's a tough one.
Overload on the right side of the
right. That's a tough thing to sort, and that's a really smart blitz. But I'm just amazed as we move on to this. We'll move on to this game in a second. I'm just amazed that was, when you really look at it, their first 3 games were very emotional. They had a knockdown, drag-out fight against Green Bay. It could have been anyone's game. It's really a great game for a week 1. Usually they're not. They can be sloppy, but it was actually really, obviously the turf was bad. But it was a really great game. They came back and won, finished them off. It was an interesting game. Atlanta, they choked late. Okay, tough loss. Shorter week. All these guys are out. Lost linemen in the first half. They found it. I mean, it could have gone anyway. Look, we've talked about it. When Sirianni changed his mind, it didn't change his mind. He decided to kick that 60-yard field goal and miss, gave the Saints a short field, but the defense came up strong. So I'm going to be interested. They're on the road here.
Mm-hmm.
Man, every week this early with all
I
this
know.
emotion, it's
I
a
know.
lot to ask players, man. It's a
And
lot.
I'm guessing it's going to be very humid. It always is. And so I always felt like the Dolphins and the Jags to some extent, but definitely the Dolphins and the Bucks have a decided advantage in September because it is still so hot, so humid. I still remember the unfortunate 2006 game. This is 2006, where Matt Bryant kicked the
That's
62
the one.
yarder against them,
Yep.
and
Yep.
it was really Bruce Gradkowski running for first
Ah,
down on a 3rd and 8 up the middle. But
Bruce.
in that game, the Bucks were up big, and then Donovan led them back, but he threw up in that game, and not
Oh,
because of the pressure of a regular
yeah.
season game against the Bucks. It was disgustingly humid there, Adam. My wife was at the game. My good friends were at the game. I saw them after, and they were drenched. So that's always something that you have to deal with in September when you're going to play down in South Florida.
All right, here's the weather. I have I pay I'm big on weather, so I pay for the premium service on
That's right. Tropical Storm
weather.com.
Caplan with his
Here we
report.
go. 1 p.m. Eastern weather in Tampa, 86 degrees. The real feel is 97 on your point.
Oh, man.
Yep.
86 feels like 97. That's just gross.
Yep. And it's 74 percent humidity. But the rain, again, we're a couple days away from this. The rain
Mhm.
it looks like it could stop between 11 and 12. But bottom line, it's, as you just said, it's going to be humid. We'll see. We'll see who's going to be available, man. This is. I find interesting, by the way, how the hell are the Eagles are favored on the road here by 1.5 with their injury situation, which is pretty major.
I'm perplexed by it. Although I will say it's gone from 2.5 to 2 to 1.5. By the time we do our
Yeah.
pregame show, the Bucks could be favored. I do think when the final injury reports come out, there might be some movement in the line depending on who's in and who's out. But yeah, I'm a little surprised by that. I watched the Bucks game against the Broncos. It was a weird game. I don't know that was like what the Bucks are. I think sometimes you just walk into a game and you don't have it, maybe like the Eagles against the Falcons playing run defense, and
Mm.
things change because it was a bizarre game.
They never
Uh,
led. They actually
yeah,
never led at
never
home.
led. Yeah, yeah,
Hard
never
to
led.
do. Yeah. Wow.
All right, so the first for some interesting things coming out of the game against the Saints. Rashid Shaheed, how about him being held without a catch?
So this is from our friends at Next Gen Stats, which I was sent to me a couple days ago. So this is good stuff.
Hmm.
Look, it looked like Rashid Shaheed almost scored, right?
Right.
Against Mitchell. He was held without a catch in week 3. But this tells you how close the coverage was. This is a good stat. His 1.1 yards of average separation was the second lowest of the week.
Wow, that tells me that Quinyon
Yeah.
Mitchell is doing a decent job
When he was on him, right?
when
Shaheed
he was on
averaged
him.
the second highest targeted air yard figure, so they tried him deep.
Mm-hmm.
21.7 yards, only trailing Terry McLaurin's 24.3 yard mark. By the way, McLaurin scored on the bomb from Jaden Daniels against who did Washington beat on the road?
Cincinnati.
Yep, Cincinnati. Now here's some great Saquon stuff. He reached a top speed of 21.66 miles per hour on a 65-yard run.
Cheetah.
The second fastest play by a ball carrier this season, and the fastest in week 3. He did this despite the 7 Saints position in the box at the time of the snap. That's why him squeezing through the hole was great. He also picked up 62 yards of yards over expectation on the run, most on a single play this season. How about that?
Well, I mean, we've talked about Barkley's hot start, doing a
Great.
nice job. He's even running with a punishing style that we haven't seen with the Giants or even at Penn State. So this is it's a nice development, and we'll see if it continues. And obviously, they're going to have to ride him a lot on Sunday.
And it's funny. Greg Cosell has been he's always been honest about Barkley. Barkley at times had been an underachiever, should be better than he is. He's always been gifted.
Mm-hmm.
But Greg only goes by the tape, and he gave us the issues with Barkley from tape study. And then you and I had some information. Not a great second level runner, doesn't run with great vision. Well, you could have fooled me this season.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's Jamal Singleton, the running backs coach, or Stout, or both of them coaching him up, but Barkley's taking this game to another level. And then this is interesting. One more note before we get to Goddard. On that day last week against the Saints, he only faced a stacked box 12% of his carries, 6th lowest, and gained a yards over expectation of 87 yards. 47% of his carries went over expectation. So the bottom line is he was phenomenal. The line was great. It's one of those things where you're like, how are they doing this? with two backups who are ushered in the second quarter. It's not like you could practice this and you work with these guys in practice it's not like the second team guys are going to get first team snaps. That's what people don't understand.
Mhm.
Like, this isn't training camp. Like, you're not getting first team snaps. You're going against Dennis Allen against a pretty good front. And they handled Saquon phenomenal. And Greg said on the live stream with us, he goes, I got to be honest with you guys, I'm very surprised. He's not looked like this before. And it's not just the great offensive line, though. I think people just assume because he's with a better offensive line, he'll be better. Yeah, we get that. But he's taken his game. It's not just the offensive line. He's taking his game another level.
There you go. All right. Maybe no stat illustrates the fragility of NFL football, where a one possession game is so close, no matter where you are, better than what the Eagles' winning percentage was prior to Dallas Goedert's 61-yard catch and then after Dallas Goedert's 61-yard catch. I don't think you will not see a whole lot of percentages jump like this in an NFL game because it's just rare.
Was it 3rd and 16?
It was, yes.
Okay, so according to Next Gen, went from 10.2% to 63.9%, a gain of 53.6% after the catch. Goddard had a career high 117 of his 170 yards after the catch, which is crazy. Plus 23 of yak over expectation. And let's see, he gained 29 yards on that play, the big play, 29 yards over expectation. Most among tight ends in week 3. No duh, he better have been. Third most among all receivers on the week and 8th of the season. So yeah, obviously, he's such a great athlete. We've always known he's a two-way player, block and run. It just, this can't, look, he's not going to duplicate this, but he can't keep having 3 for 35, 4 for 41. That's not acceptable. And Greg has talked about it, Cosell, since he's been with us. Jalen doesn't like throwing in the middle of the field. That's where tight ends catch the football. But that doesn't mean you can't scheme him up in another way and get him the football.
Right.
We've talked about Jalen has missed him a bunch the last 2 seasons. So hopefully they could get themselves together. One other note, the zone man stuff is in on defense. Eagles playing about 68% zone, which is what we thought.
Yep.
Bucs, how about this one? This surprises me. They're second highest in the NFL at 82% zone.
82. Now they're blitzing a lot. They're just blitzing with zone coverage.
Yep, on the back end,
which is something Todd Bowles has actually done more of over the last few years. Because I don't, he obviously doesn't have great man coverage corners, but I didn't think it was that. Wow, 82%. That's pretty interesting. Yeah. All right, good stuff. Good stuff. Hey, listen, I really like Dennis Allen a lot. I love his defenses. I mean, I like what he does. I don't know how he slept Sunday night calling a man coverage there on 3rd and 16, like just being that aggressive, knowing that the Eagles were running rub routes and pick plays all game long. 3rd and 16, God, it must have been a tough night for him, man. Especially those guys fell into each other.
That's it. The what did I call it on Monday? Keystone Cops thing.
Yeah,
they ran into each other. 3 guys, it was like dominoes. They all fell down. It's crazy.
All right,
yeah,
go ahead. I was going to say, but we'll get into just a few things on the Bucs. Before we do that, let's hear a word from our great friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, you heard me say it last pod. If you can't make it into Sky Motor Cars, please visit them at SkyMotorCars.com and make sure you really are I mean, their customer service compared to how it is to try to buy a car these days is heavenly. All right, get yourself, pick up a phone or go to the website and really look at their inventory of high-end used cars, because it's absolutely worth it just for the experience alone, on top of the fact that you can get a really good car at a great rate through Sky Motor Cars.
Look at the reviews. I every time I go through them, I'm just amazed. They're legit reviews, and they always on their IG, follow them on Instagram. You can see the people coming out. The people are very vocal about how much they love Sky. It's if you look at their Facebook page or IG, people love going there because it's We always said you always get a great deal. Brett and his staff, Brett Schulter and his staff are very respectful. And his son Skylar is a punter at University of Delaware.
Go Skylar. Go Hens. I happen to know the head coach of the Hens pretty well. We go back. So that's pretty cool. I've enjoyed their success. By the way, did you notice I'm rocking the Memphis football shirt from our friend Ryan Silverfield?
Yeah, they had a tough loss.
That's right. That's right. They did lose a tough one.
Listen,
that's college football. You go beat Florida State, you know the next week it's tough to duplicate, right? I don't know what it is.
The option got them. That quarterback had over 200 yards rushing.
Yeah.
It was a heartbreaker because they had a great win against his buddy Mike Norvell, who was the former head coach of Memphis, who's now Florida State. Great road win there.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, they're 3-1, but 0-1 in the conference. But we'll have Ryan on. We'll see what other Memphis players they have. The Eagles have what? They have Jake Elliott,
Bryce Huff,
and Kenny Gainwell.
There's a third one. Okay, Gainwell, right?
Yeah,
right.
They might have a fourth. I can't remember. But anyway, good luck to them this week as they continue conference play.
There you go. All right. So the Buccaneers, obviously they've faced the Buccaneers a lot. So we know one of the challenges is, Jalen Hurts doesn't always play well against the Todd Bowles defense. I know they won last year in week 3. Was it week 3 or week 4? Week 4.
Week 3.
Week 3 in Tampa.
Yep.
That was not a great game for her. I mean, they scored 23 offensive points in the game. I think that they were under 40% third down. He threw 2 interceptions. So it wasn't, he had a lower passer rating that day than Baker Mayfield, who also didn't play a great game. So, and Baker, Adam, I was watching a little bit. While he has improved from a couple of years ago, he still has that issue that we talk about with Jalen Hurts, where there are some times where he just gets out of the pocket for absolutely no reason. Like no pressure. It's like you think there's going to be pressure or whatever, and then you just take away your options by leaving the pocket. So if the Eagles can get a little bit of pressure or just even get that pocket pinched around him, that'll help them big time.
Yep. He did not play well last week. All the numbers are bad. So we'll add a couple things when we do our pregame show with Cosell. But, by the way, defensively, we talked about the Eagles don't have a sack from their edge rushers. They only have one. Tryon Shoyinka got it in week 1 against Washington, but they haven't had one since then. And they could not get to Bo Nix last week. Nix didn't put up major numbers, but they just couldn't get. They're finding it's funny. Todd Bowles is asked every week, "What's wrong with your pass rush? What's wrong with your pass rush?" Mm-hmm. They're gonna have to try something else because
I will say, Bo Nix was their leading rusher. It's not that they didn't get him off his spot. There was a play where he kind of rolled to his right and then hit somebody against McCollum for about 41 yards. He made some plays. He ran for a touchdown. I don't know if it's that they're not getting pressure, maybe not getting home when they do get pressure. I don't know. It was a weird game. I mean, I don't know how much of it you saw. It was just a very weird game on both sides.
Yeah, it was kind of low octane.
Yeah.
Nick State hit a lot of big plays. Cortland Sutton had one. Josh Reynolds had one big play.
That was one. Reynolds caught the one on McCollum where McCollum tried to get press coverage and missed, and then Cortland was like wide open. So,
and then the other thing is we do want to mention before we get out of here, Bucky Irving's going to be a factor. So Rashad White is a versatile back. He has no explosion.
Right.
Good on checkdowns. He'll get you positive. He'll lean forward, but he has no explosion. And Bucky Irving, their fourth rounder out of Oregon, is, as you said earlier, he's going to have a bigger role. They know this. They need some juice in the run game. He also could catch. He was known as a guy who could catch the football at Oregon. Speaking of Bo Nix, so we'll see what happens. But that's one thing. And Sean Tucker, the undrafted free agent last year out of Syracuse, is their third back who's got good size and explosion. So I'll be interested to see if they make this a 50-50 split with White and Irving.
Good stuff. All right, we will get into this game from A to Z with Greg Cosell on the Inside the Birds pregame show. That'll be out Sunday morning, 6 a.m., bright and early for everybody to be able to consume. And that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us Inside the Birds. Be sure to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation.